Hello and welcome to the MHG podcast. As usual, life can be a little bit miserable, life can be a little bit dark, so we are here to bring you as much light and as much joy as possible. Once again, for your 300th episode, I am Bradley, and I'm joined by my resident podcast partner, could be my co-partner, the evil Stu. How you doing, Stu?
Not too bad. Yeah, it's a nice foreshadowing there of what we're going to be covering. But I suppose everyone will know from the episode title, but the other person won't look. So yes, some exciting stuff to talk about for this monumental landmark occasion, which, when we had our 200th episode, we completely missed the opportunity to do anything exciting. So we're making up for it this time round.
Yes, we could be putting a cap on it, maybe.
Yeah, and we'll be using our computers to talk about everything. Yeah.
Yes, that's mega, man.
Oh, it's going to be a beautiful episode.
Oh, yeah.
Some awful
puns. Marvel versus Capcom. What? I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, basically we got a Capcom Special today, going over what is quite the vast history of video games over the years, just because why not? What better way to celebrate 300? Because it's either that or we was going to do loads of Sparta references, and we thought, none of us really like Gerard Butler that much.
Nah, I can't really be bothered taking my top off and posing in my little loincloth.
Oh, no, you know that we saved that for a Saturday night, Stu.
Yeah, or maybe the 500th episode or something, if you're lucky.
Yeah, we'll record that, still bronze up.
No,
anyway,
it's all right. Sorry, go on.
Talking of bronzing up, we still have stuff to talk about, Stu, that we've got to do. So, video games, Stu.
That's right, video games. What have you been playing?
Well, I did try and find something that might, link in with the episode, but I haven't. So it's a non-Capcom game I've been playing. And it's SpongeBob SquarePants, Titans of the Tide.
Wow.
Yes, well indeed. So, for anyone who doesn't know, SpongeBob SquarePants is anthropomorphic, I can't say those words, sponge with a face. Yeah, something, I don't know. But yeah, yeah. It's a cartoon. We all know what SpongeBob is. I don't even know why I'm doing that. And SpongeBob's had a few video games before, various quality, some absolute bangers in its time. But this is a new one called Titans of the Tide, and yeah, it's what I would say is a PS2 arse era PS2 arse game with modern updates, quality of life updates that just make it a game that feels like you're playing a PS2 game in your memory rather than what it's actually like to play PS2 platformers these days. But yeah, it's really good. So it's still 3D, so it's still like you kind of got this weird thing you've got to get over when you see it. So it's like these 3D graphics and everything. SpongeBob's in 3D, so is Patrick, Mr. Krabs and stuff like that. And so you kind of get over that, but you get used to it because it is a 3D platformer. But what you've really got here is some really cool writing, actually. It feels tonally right in with the show. It feels like they've written a script that would fit with the show. The humour's all there. The comedic timing's all there. The voice acting's all there. And they built a video game around it. So a lot of the interactions that you have feel like they would fit in an episode or of SpongeBob, which is really, really good, and it's still probably Nickelodeon's most recognisable property. But the crux of this is, and what I really like about it is, it's a game that's aimed at kids. It's a kid-friendly game, but it's definitely one that, even as someone who's older, can appreciate playing. The challenge is there, so it's not overly difficult. That it's like the Dark Souls of 3D platformers or anything, but it's not so easy that you're just like, who even is this for? There's a challenge to it. While there's enough, why it's easy enough that you could just kind of like mess around within it and still have fun. So you get to mainly players like SpongeBob at times, and then Patrick, and they've both got their own different things they can do, and so on and so forth. And there's like the story is there's the Flying Dutchman has taken over the Crab Shack thingy, not Crab Shack. That's My Name Is Earl. What's it called?
I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know anything about SpongeBob.
Oh, okay, the Krabby thing or whatever it is. Anyway, yeah, the Crab Shack. That's definitely My Name Is Earl. Anyway, I'm going way off track here.
Crabman.
Yeah. He should go in SpongeBob just for a nice crossover. Anyway, but yeah, it's been taken over. You've got to rescue it. It's, you know, the story's SpongeBob type stuff. But yeah, it's fun. It's just what I'll get to. It's just a really fun 3D platformer that feels like something that you would have played in the PS2 era, but has really sort of like been made for the modern era, and it works really, really well. So yeah, highly recommend it if you've got any interest in SpongeBob or enjoyed the SpongeBob humour at any point of your life. I think it's worth picking up. I had a great time with it. If you've got, you know, kids like ages 7, 8, 9, that sort of age, then I think you'll have a great time playing it with them. It is single player, unfortunately. There's no co-op or anything in there. But I said, it's one of those, you can pick up the controller, enjoy it with your kids, or pass the controller to the kid or something. They can play it while you help them and just enjoy what's on the TV. So, yeah, highly, one that I do recommend. And it runs perfectly well on Steam Deck, verified, everything that you need. So, out the box, play it, have fun.
Yeah, it looks really enjoyable. Just as I've been watching the videos, David Hasselhoff cropped up.
He's a recurring character, I believe.
All right, nice. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, there's a whole thing. It's really weird that Hasselhoff's in it, and there's a lot of fourth wall breaks in the TV series and everything, and that comes across here as well. And yeah,
very cool. Yeah. It's nice to see this sort of game around that isn't Nintendo and therefore costing, you know, half your life savings.
Yeah, and it's not Nintendo quality. So, it's not, maybe I want to see on the second coming of that. It's a bit jank in places, but it's all stuff you can accept. Let's say £35, which I suppose technically for not a AA game is about right. And yeah, you'll get a few hours fun out of it and definitely get your money's worth.
Marvellous.
That's that completed.
Lovely. Yeah, well, I've not been playing anything this week. It's just been one of those weeks where I've either not had time or been too knackered. So been a bit dull on the gaming front. But that doesn't matter because we're talking about something that's pretty timeless. So as mentioned, we're going to do a special on our experiences of Capcom games. So, Capcom are an absolute giant. And they're an institution now. And it's all started back in the arcade era. And the impact that they had on the arcades is absolutely phenomenal. Now, for me, it started way back in 1984 when they released 1942, ironically. So 1984 or 1942, I don't know, too many dates. And I first came across it in a little arcade in Whitby when we were staying in a caravan park, and it was like Haven Holidays. It's still there, the holiday park. It's really cool. It's up on the cliffs, and they had just like 2 or 3 games in there, and one of them was 1942, and I just was like every morning going in there and absolutely caning it. And I think, if my memory, is right, I think I managed to do a 1cc, 1 credit completion on it eventually, after all that play. Oh. Yeah, it's so good, just a vertical shoot 'em up. lots and lots of colour, lots of bright explosions. It's just everything you want from a Capcom game, and from an arcade game in general. And after that, they started to really get the ball rolling. And in the next year, in 1985, Ghosts and Goblins came out, and I think everybody knows what Ghosts and Goblins is, and at least Ghouls and Ghosts, and that had a sequel within the last couple of years, and it's so much fun. And the thing that leapt out at me about that game straight away was the music. It's one of those, when you hear it in the arcade, and you hear that and you're just like, oh my god, I gotta play that. And there's a little video shop in like round the corner from us, like near the shops, before when video like rental was in its absolute heyday, and they opened up and had a couple of games in there, and they were Contra and Ghosts and Goblins. And this was in about 1988, I think, or 87 or something like that. And they were like 10p a play still. So I was absolutely rinsing that. And even when you rinse Ghosts and Goblins, you tend to not get anywhere with it. It's one of them that you could dedicate your life to trying to do that game with a single credit, because it's practically impossible. But they were just in that amazing time. I never saw Forgotten Worlds in the arcade, even though I was obsessed with the screenshots I'd seen of it. And that's probably because of the strange rotary controls that it had and making it rare. But I, constantly seeing the visuals of that game in 98. This was like 1988 by now. I saw it in CMVG magazine and all of that. And that bright silver and orange style, it was so arresting that it started an obsession with me. And absolutely loved it. And they were knocking it out of the park with most of their games, and they were building, and then in 1989 was like their banner year, because like both Strider and Final Fight came out in 1989. I was completely lost then. I played both of them in Llandudno that year. I was totally gobsmacked by the gigantic sprites in Final Fight. It's you can't. It just looked like nothing else in terms of the quality at that time. It took a good few years for other companies to catch up and do anything that was as sophisticated or just like a massively polished product like that. And it's such a good foundation. I don't know if you played any of them in the arcade, but just seeing them amongst the other stuff with its smaller sprites and more limited visuals, it was like, oh my god, how have they done that?
I think my first Capcom game was in the arcade was Bionic Commando. That was, I remember seeing that and that standing out to me at the time. When I went, I'd see you'd still see people had their old Ataris, like cabs up there. So you have like Space Invaders and Pong and stuff like that still doing the rounds. And then this stood out. I remember playing that. And then I didn't actually play 1942 until I was 13. And I was at Army Cadets. We went to a camp in Salisbury. And in the mess hall, they had a couple of arcade cabinets there, like and some things you could do. I remember they had like a championship sprint table, but then in the corner they had, obviously slightly off, they had like a puzzle bobble, which got me interested in puzzle games. But then there was this vertical shooter, and it just looked amazing. And of course, it's in an army mess hall, so of course it's 1942 because that tracks. And I remember sort of like playing that. Any spare second I had in like there, not like downtime was like they had it set up so that it only cost like 10p, I think, or something like that to play. And I was just rinsing that in the army mess hall and like quickly have whatever I'm having, a pot noodle or something, and then I'd go and play that years after the fact. Like, don't get me wrong, this is like years after when it first came out, but God, that game still holds up today as well.
It really does, yeah. I had to go on it not that long ago, and its sequels as well. And 1943 on the PC Engine I played not that long ago, and yeah, that really stands out and holds up as well. It's dead simple. Nothing sophisticated, but the mechanics are just so solid. You're always going to enjoy yourself. You know what you're going to get, and it's just always fun. Yeah, that's so cool.
And I know you mentioned Final Fight as well. Now, I don't like Final Fight, and it's not Final Fight's fault as an arcade game, because for years I never played the arcade version. My uncle had a Commodore 64, and he had it on there, and it wasn't very good. Commodore 64.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
So my experience when I've people talk, I'm like, but Final Fight's rubbish. Like, no, it's not. I'm like, it is. It's rubbish. I have since played the proper version, and yeah, it's good. But for years, I was like, I just don't get this one at all.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? That there was lots of games like that you had an experience on, like the Specky, and you're like, oh, this game's crap.
Yeah, I know.
It's like Outrun.
Most games on the Spectrum were crap. Even the good ones. I'm still waiting for my Colin the Cleaner remaster.
Yeah, you never know. It might eventually come. But yeah, I mean, the 80s was starting, to build that really good foundation. But the early 90s when they started getting into another gear. And what the reason for that was because the effort they put into their home conversions was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And Mega Man had already been doing really, really well on the NES. Bionic Commando did really well on the NES as well. But they really hit their stride when the SNES came out in about 91. Mega Man just was absolutely gigantic on the SNES. They released tons of direct to SNES games and spin-offs, and just on that machine alone. And Final Fight itself landed early in the SNES life cycle with a really superb conversion, and then it just carried on in that vein, and they got Final Fight Guy, and then 2 exclusive sequels. But it wasn't just that series that shone, or just Mega Man. Dozens of high quality titles came out.
They're Disney stuff. Yeah. Their Disney stuff was outstanding. Like, I remember playing DuckTales and on the NES and absolutely falling in love with that. That was amazing. And Aladdin, was the Capcom SNES Aladdin better than the Virgin Interactive Mega Drive Aladdin? Yes, it was.
Yeah, you're coming down on that side. So that's been argued for decades now.
I love both, but you can tell Capcom compared to others.
Yeah, that quality always shone out, and they had the likes of like UN Squadron, Breath of Fire series, Super Ghouls and Ghosts came out on it. So many Magic Sword. All these things were popping off, and it was the lead home platform for arguably the biggest arcade release of all time in Street Fighter 2. And that was just insane. The focus that got was incredible. And I was one of those who bought an import game converter to play it. Those ones that slotted in the top, and you put your PAL one in the back, and then you put the imported game in the front, and it managed to play the game because of that.
Kids don't know they're born today, do they?
I know, right? Jesus. Because I spent about 25 quid by itself just on the converter. And I was one of the madmen who paid 70 quid for an import copy of the game.
But
and that's
felt the bee's knees because you had something no one else had.
Well, that's right. Yeah. It was, it was worth doing, even though it was 160 odd quid in today's money. But it was so addictive, and all, me and my mates just went round each other's houses playing that for like the rest of the year, which when you're that age is like, for something to take up your attention for like 6 months is crazy. And we ended up just doing that with the Alpha series for the rest of the decade as well.
Well, I was Street Fighter Alpha.
Street Fighter Alpha, yeah. So such a good conversion.
That was the quality of the games then. You was happy to spend a massive chunk of your pocket money or your earnings on these because you knew they was going to last. For every Rise of the Robots, you had a Capcom classic or an absolute banger from Nintendo or Sega or something like that. But yeah, so you're happy to go and pay ridiculous money to play this Capcom game because you still go back in the days where you was maybe having to wait months upon months for it to actually get an EU release because it might have come out in Japan and America, but you still months away from getting it over here. So yeah.
God, yeah. There's so many things that you just forget and that you take for granted now, and availability, and the fact that it will run the same in our country as it will in other countries. And back in the day, none of that was necessarily up for grabs, and you had to do all this stuff to make sure you were playing even like a half decent version of it. But yeah, the SNES was so close to the arcade in terms of its feel. Capcom had managed to just extract all of the gameplay elements and somehow cram them down into this tiny little box. And I don't think I ever got over how good that game looked and played on the Super Nintendo. It is wild. It's probably one of the best conversions of all time, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. And it's still, it doesn't seem as impressive these days to like people looking back because obviously we're in an age now where the arcades are probably behind what you get at home.
Yeah.
But it was until what I would say the mid 2000s, maybe early 2000s, if we're going to be generous, that the arcade was that's what everyone wanted. That's what you were striving for. Parity with that, because that was so far ahead of everything else. It feels almost alien now to go back and think about it like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've played two new, in inverted commas, newish arcade games this year. Transformers Shadows Rising and Luigi's Mansion Arcade. And both of them, they've pitched it at sort of the PS3, Xbox 360 era. That's like where it's up to. And I guess that's because that's all they can afford in terms of return on investment. But yeah, back in the day, the Final Fight or the Street Fighter, the CPS1 and CPS2 arcade boards were so far in advance of the likes of the Mega Drive and the SNES. They were like 10 times more powerful. And yet they managed to make a game that practically looked like the arcade, for all intents and purposes. That's amazing work.
Apart from those Commodore and Spectrum conversions, but let's say
yes, I think even the people who still owned those machines then were like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that to myself. That's self-abuse and not the good kind.
You go, it's fine. It's fine, honestly. I'm playing this at home. It's saving me money.
I think like everybody who had an Amiga, because everybody pirated every Amiga game they ever had. Everybody had Street Fighter 2 on the Amiga just because you could, for the price of a couple of, or whatever it was, 4 or 5 discs. And that was insanely bad. Like, that's just the worst conversion of any game ever. Oh my God, it's so bad. And one button to play with. But yeah, so Street Fighter 2 era, just unbelievable for them. And, then like you're talking about getting out of the that era, the early part of it, and just before the PS1 came out and the arcades started their sad decline, we were treated to like a glut of amazing belt scrollers, like Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Captain Commando, The Punisher, Dungeons and Dragons, Shadow over Mystara, and my goat, Alien versus Predator, which I go on about as often as people will let me, and normally have to slap me around the face to shut me up about it. But it's like one of my top 10 games of all time, and it's just beautiful. And I remember that I got to play that in an arcade next to the snooker club in Cheltenham when I was in college there. I only got to play it a few times before I left, and before the cabinet itself started to disappear. And because of licensing, it never got a home release, so that was lost to me for years and years and years. And then eventually, emulation came round, and I was able to play it. But it just points out how many of these things sort of just disappeared around that era. But luckily with the likes of Captain Commando, you got really decent versions of that. So it was just a cracking era for them, even though it was not a great time for arcade machines.
No, Aliens versus Predator, it's like, again, you need to explain to sort of like younger people in a way, no, this wasn't a film cash-in. Trust me. If anything, the film was a game cash-in.
Yeah.
Because this predates the film by a mega amount.
It does. And it's so much better than the film in qualitative terms as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me wrong. The film's shite but brainless fun. I like the film, don't get me wrong. It's up there with even the... like if we're going to go down there, this will link in a sec, I think. But you give me, Jurassic World, the latest Jurassic World films. Now, by all intents and purposes, they're shite. They are. But me, I'm an autistic ADHD who goes, dinosaurs.
Too right.
And I will watch them. I don't give a flying rat's ass. The first film, greatest thing that's ever made. Don't care, come at me. The later films, rubbish, but dinosaurs.
I know, right? I know.
So, yeah, sometimes something doesn't have to be great to be mindless fun. But yeah, Aliens vs. Predator, the game. Oh, that is... amazing. Well, that is so good.
It's wild at how much they were able to get out the CPS2 board. It's just incredible. All of that, the vast number of colours, the vast number of sprites. It just, you couldn't really believe it, and it was that really sweating the system. It was that really like, we're not letting this go because it's making us money, because Street Fighter's making a lot of money on this board. And then you get in the likes of, Street Fighter Alpha 3, a good few years later, still running on CPS2 and just looking phenomenal, looking like a cartoon. It was just an amazing piece of hardware. It was like, the absolute cornerstone of their success in that time. And then, like, everything started to change, and in good ways and bad. But, in the late 90s, the consoles were doing a good job of keeping up with the huge catalogue of their arcade releases. And we got ports of the Street Fighter games, Darkstalkers, like everything that all those 2D fighters that Capcom were focusing on, and Marvel Superheroes, Marvel vs. Capcom, loads of others. But then, mid to late 90s, the shift from arcades to home-based gaming started to bite. Now, luckily, well, not luckily, but because of their vast resources and incredibly talented work staff, they really started to step up to the plate in the home. And Resident Evil, it came out, and oh my god, that was just like, it's a few years after Street Fighter 2, and it was as big a jump for them as that game had been, and a massive jump for the home market. Gigantic series, grown in strength and sales year after year. Well, apart from a little dip, but we'll come to that. But it was a phenomenal title on the PlayStation. It had that puzzle aspect of gaming that you normally only got on your Amiga or your PC at that time, and it was married to Capcom's great sense of drama and explosive action as well. And Shinji Mikami's contribution to Capcom's success is just beyond measure, really. No other arcade game producer transitioned to the home market so smoothly or successfully as they did. And the Resi franchise was just a huge part of that. I remember I played it, the first game at my house, on a holiday break back from uni with my mate Chris, and we were trying to puzzle it all out together and drawing little maps of where you had to go, and one of those that I've played it that many times it's in my top 10. I can complete it within about an hour to an hour and a half now, but we must have spent 20 hours on that.
I still spend about 20 odd hours trying to get through. So.
Exactly. And then Resi 2, we played that at his house and mapping it out and doing the code breaking and all that.
But the first Resident Evil, little fun fact here before we go on and I forget, is obviously if we take out the Spectrum and Commodore, you pirated games on there because you just went down the market and just bought the game and it was pirated, but you didn't know that. You was a kid spending £2. Resident Evil was my very first pirated game that I actually went out and went, I want that, but I can't afford it, so chip my PlayStation.
Yeah.
I want to play Resident Evil. So it was that was good, and I spent ages like it was one of the games as well. You look back at it now, you go, I don't get how that was tense. It doesn't hold. It does hold up in terms of you appreciate it for what it was, but you look at it and go, it's so camp now that you're like, why was I scared of this at times? But it was magic for what it was. I don't think there had been that level of immersion before in a video game. That sort of that much tension in a video game based around horror, because in Resident Evil, not much actually happens.
Yeah, true.
And it understands timing perfectly. So when you have that moment of the head turn and everything, that freaks you out because you're like, oh my god, what's coming next? And then you get the dogs through the window. But then that's really it in terms of jump scares for quite some time, but your tension is something's going to happen, but it doesn't. It's written and played so perfectly that it just plays off your fears of something's going to happen, and it's just done so well. A lot of games that try and do the whole scare thing just need to learn more from how perfect Resident Evil was with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just beautifully directed. The way that it steps things up, like you said, you go along for a lot of it. You do the mansion, and then you do the underground scientific research. And there's a scare with that where you're running along through the water, and it's this really quiet, deserted lab, and suddenly it jumps to this cutscene from out of nowhere, which is a point of view of something swimming towards your legs. And then it cuts back to you as the player, and it's these massive sharks coming after you. It's like, Jesus Christ. And then it does something similar. You complete all that section, and you go back to the mansion, and you get that bit with the hunters being introduced. And you're just coming back through, and you're like, oh, back in the mansion now. I know that the only thing in the mansion is zombies, really, apart from the odd yawn, the snake pops up and stuff like that. Oh,
yeah, but I can deal with those. I've learned how to deal with those.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Yeah, I know what I'm dealing with, and then suddenly jumps this point of view of this something leaping parkour over all these obstacles and running through all these areas that you've spent hours doing, running through them in 2 seconds, and it cuts back to you and you hear this door open and close, and off screen this hunter comes in and then shrieks and leaps at you, and it's oh, that's just so well done. And yeah, it's an absolute. It is just genius, and
it's the one game I still, when I play it today, and I play the emulated version, when I do that, I don't use quick save for, because a lot of what makes that game work is the reason you get those moments is one, the game allows you time to breathe when it's needed. And that doesn't always then mean something's going to happen, which is really clever. So it gives you moments to breathe outside of all the other bits you're doing. So it keeps you busy, and then you get moments to breathe. And then on occasions you get the big, something's going to happen. And it's not exactly oh my God, it's scary. You other games, you go, I'll die and I'll just redo all this. Because save points are a finite thing, and you have to collect save points in a way, you've really got to go, right, I saved ages ago. If this thing gets me, I'm screwed. Now, when you put quick saves and stuff to it, that gets taken away because you could just, I'll just go back to just before that and stuff. So it's one of the games that I forced myself to not use quick saves for, because that save system is ingrained in how that game works. And again, really clever, because you've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, that's right. I think there was it had a little bit from Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider had come out like about, I don't know, a little bit before it, and that had you had to save you had to keep the save crystals and use them judiciously, but they you only had a limited number, but you could deploy them anywhere really, and you're like, oh, do I do it here or do I not? But it was another twist on that. It was like, you can only save in these save rooms, these physical rooms. So clever. And not only did you have your kind of, you've got to get between rooms and it's like, oh my god, finally safe, but you also had the thing of you feeling vulnerable as a character, but also like the vulnerability of your team who were all spread out in the mansion, and you were trying to find them, and you were trying to think like get everybody back together and save their lives. Enrico and Barry and Chris, or if you were playing as Jill or vice versa.
Barry.
Rebecca.
I just love the fact
Wesker. Yeah, Barry. Fantastic.
A lot of Americans probably don't know why that's funny, but when I grew up, obviously there was Barry in EastEnders, so it's just like having like some kind of like top like military type person who's the best of the best, being called Barry just doesn't work.
I know, it's like Neil or Keith, it's one of those kind of names. It's just too gentle to be anything but.
But the reason it also worked is it worked for other games that weren't even Capcom, because obviously the big comparison, even though for me they're completely different games, is that and Silent Hill. Now, what I went into with Silent Hill with well, if these like top like military type people who are the best of the best of the best are in danger, and then I'm going to play as everyman in Silent Hill, what could happen here? You didn't feel invincible all of a sudden in video games with other games, and a lot of it again was based on Resident Evil, because you never felt safe, even though you had your character had the training and they should be able to deal with stuff like this. If they were vulnerable, what does that mean for these characters who aren't the best of the best? And I think, to credit Konami there, to move aside from them, you have to credit them for going, we're going to take this influence and we're going to do this with it. And it's like, okay, Silent Hill doesn't happen without Resident Evil, I don't think, in the way that it was made.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's one of those that it's taken enough of the template to be obviously a kind of offspring, but done enough with it to make itself stand out. And it would not have existed without it. And the whole history of like early Resident Evil is littered with this, where it's done so much that's just influenced everything that's every horror game that's come after it has got some aspect of the demon, Even
Shinji Mikami's own follow-ups, like The Evil Within. There's so much Resident Evil like in there. It's got, I think, a better version of like the Nemesis system in many ways in there. But again, that comes from early Resident Evil influence.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, yeah. And it's got that. They've all got that mix of tension and body horror that is. They're not trying to be ghost stories, and they're not trying to be, necessarily one great big supernatural monster kind of thing. It's that it's human beings who are the evil, as is true, and that body horror of the tyrant and the virus. It's so cleverly all worked together for what is superficially like a fairly simple idea. It's just brilliantly done. And Resident Evil 2 just took it to another level after that. So yeah. But after that I was a Dreamcast fanboy, when we were talking about 98, 99. And, it was all starting to kick off for me. And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of Capcom. There was a decent number of Capcom games on the Dreamcast. I mean, it lasted such a short amount of time that you can't expect too many. But, I enjoyed the hell out of Cannon Spike and Capcom versus SNK. But, you're talking about the PS2, really, because that saw Capcom just smack it out of the park.
And their best ever game as well for me.
Oh, we'll probably get to that in a moment.
Right around this time, so... And it's followed on from Resident Evil.
Yeah. Dino Crisis.
What is Resident Evil, but with dinosaurs?
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually wasn't going to mention it because of time.
No.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Jurassic Park is up there with Fight Club and as one of my all-time favourite films, and I still haven't been blown away by a film like Jurassic Park. When I first saw that in the cinema. And then when I saw there was a video game of Jurassic Park that wasn't actually Jurassic Park, I was like, okay, yes, please, I'm going to play this. And it was every bit as amazing as I thought it was going to be. Again, perfectly timed jump scares at the right time. And it was a bit more frantic than Resident Evil. This is what was really good. Resident Evil was slow and plodding because obviously zombies are slow and plodding on the whole. But dinosaurs, we've seen this already. Velociraptors are quick. They can come at you from all angles and stuff like that. And it had that. It was frantically paced. You never felt safe within this game because again, this was borrowing all the best bits from Jurassic Park, where you go, well, we know Velociraptors learn and they're clever. Clever girl and all that. And we know the destruction the T-Rex can do. So even when you was inside, you didn't feel safe. You was just constant fear of a dinosaur's going to get me. I'm going to be taken down. And it's just, it was magic. And I still think to this day, so I won't spend age on this, Capcom's biggest mistake is they still haven't remastered those games.
It does seem a little bit odd. I don't really understand why they haven't
People
done
want
it. Yeah.
them. They've seen these petitions.
I know, it's a bit crazy. It's one of them, like Mega Man, that they've just consigned to the bottom of the ocean, and it's like, why? Why have you done that? I kind of get it with Mega Man, but there's no excuse for Dino Crisis. It's been over 20 years since the one on the Xbox.
Dino Crisis in that Resident Evil 7 mould.
No, I know, it's crazy. I'd love to hammer that. I loved both of the games, because I don't acknowledge the third one exists.
Dinosaurs in space, no. No one does.
Thank you.
Even Jurassic World writers have looked at that and gone, a bit much.
Jurassic World would have gone, the quality of that's too low. But the first two games on the PlayStation are crackers. Absolutely great stuff. Yeah. So I mean, on the the PS2, it started to go absolutely bananas, and you got that Resi-alike, which was Onimusha, which was a really solid game, good fun. Nothing to scare the horses or anything, but a good solid Resident Evil style game, but in a different milieu. But then we got the era defining Devil May Cry. Is one of those PS2 releases that it dragged happy PS2 owners away from the likes of SSX and Pro Evo and Gran Turismo and the rest. But for me personally, Devil May Cry felt like the first proper translation of arcade action into full 3D, because they'd had several years of them trying to, there were loads of games that were made in 3D that were action games and that were arcadey style, but one that blended the actual point of 3D and using a 3D environment whilst also having a very immediate multi-layered attack system. There'd not really been anything before that did it so well. And it was partly the power of the PS2, but it was partly that that knowledge, that transformative journey that they'd gone on from iterating on the Resident Evil idea. And I was obsessed with that game, with Devil May Cry, and never never clicked with the others quite so much, probably because it was such an era-defining, transformative kind of a game. But it was amazing.
Was there a more 2000s brooding character than Dante either? It was of the time, and he fit perfectly.
Exactly. Good God. He's the poster child for the year 2000, really, isn't he?
He was the most emo character you could ever imagine for the time.
Good God, yes.
And still is. He's still living those times.
He is, yeah. That series has kind of become a bit of a mainstay. And every few years one comes out and they still do good numbers. And
I think they've learned not to change Dante too much as well now.
Yeah. It took them a while to click with that, but
I still like DMC.
They've got there.
Well, I don't care what people. We've spoken about this before. I still think it's fantastic. It's just not a Devil May Cry game. They should have done that. It's a whole new IP. Yeah,
I agree. But I agree it's very good as well. But Devil May Cry was one of those real crossover games. It really did become a top seller, even though it's not a genre that you would expect to be a top seller. You'd think it was not very mainstream, but it just came at the right time with the right number of innovations, and were looking absolutely incredible to turn people's heads. So absolutely brilliant. And this was the era when obviously development cycles started to slow down because you needed years to complete games, and not everything that Capcom set the heights on became mega hits. But for the rest of the decade, I got a lot of pleasure out of stuff like Maximo and Chaos Legion, God Hand, which I know you were a big fan of.
Yes, God Hand's really good. Of that era as well, you also had they tried to have something that wasn't their wheelhouse as well. They went to racing games.
Indeed, they did.
With Auto Modellista.
That's right.
Which is one of I think the most underrated racing. Now, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But the handling was quite weird, and it still is this day. And I'd love to see someone take that again and Capcom do something with it. But it was the most visually striking racing game I still think I've ever seen in my life, because it was like racing a cartoon in every way, and it was just amazing to look at.
Yeah, well, you won't believe this, but I only stuck that on the other day because I was fiddling around with my GameCube and stuck that one on, and it looks phenomenal. And I'm talking about on original hardware, on a CRT as well, so no cheating, no kind of upscaling or anything, and it completely holds up. It could be released tomorrow, and you'd be like, art style over everything. When it comes to visuals, shows how important that is. Oh, it really does. Yeah, it is a absolutely phenomenal looking game, and I was really impressed with that one. And I didn't really click with the gameplay much, but just the way that it looked was good enough for me. But I really did click. All of those ones that came out on the PS2, and then on the 360, got Lost Planet, which was excellent, and and the likes of Ace Attorney on the DS. They're
oh god,
crackers.
Forget that's Capcom.
Yeah.
Wow, that is genre defining.
Yeah, you love those, don't you?
Oh, I love the Ace Attorney games. Yeah, they are. They really do get the brain matter going. And they don't insult your intelligence either. You've really got to think about what you're doing, and it's even though you're presented with all the evidence and you've got to essentially press the right buttons, it's not kind of obvious. There's no hand holding to get there. But if you don't present it correctly, and this is where it's really clever, in a court situation, and this is what I like compared to other detective games. Other detective games, you know the answer, but you can't get there because the game's going, no, not yet, you've got to do this. And you go, but I can prove it here, but the game's going, not yet. When you're in a court situation, even if you know that person's done that killing, for example, and you've still got to provide the correct evidence in court to be able to convict. And that's what the game does. It goes, look, we know that you know that this is the right thing. This is what happened. prove it. And that is brilliant. And they've kept that going throughout. They've never really... I think on one of the games, slightly dumbed it down. I think it might have been the Ace Attorney versus Professor Layton game. They slightly dumbed it down. But that needed to be done because of the Professor Layton stuff, which isn't a dumbed down game. It had to fit in with the puzzle side of that. But to this day, they still have that prove it. We know that you know that you've got to prove it in court. And it's something that doesn't translate to other games, even though they try. So yeah, it's other games where they need to go, use your intuition. Here you can't, because you are a lawyer or barrister, whatever it is in America these days. Lawyer, isn't it? Or attorney. The name's in the title, Stu. Jesus. But you've got to go through what you would expect in court. And it's just, I think they are genius, those games.
Yeah, they are. And it was a comparatively fallow period for Capcom. And I think that those games really helped keep their profile high, in that kind of mid to late 2000s. And they were kind of not on the ropes, but they were very much one of the lower tier, publishers at that point. Definitely publishing standpoint. And until kind of around, I think it was 2008 or 2009 when Street Fighter 4 got released. Yes. And then they came sort of roaring back, and that was an absolutely gigantic crossover hit, that game. Street Fighter 3 is one of my favourite games of all time, and that came out in 1999. And never got a home port, to any of the consoles of the era because it was too powerful. It was too complicated for a lot of casual players. It sort of split the fan base from people who played it for fun to people who were doing it on a semi-pro kind of level and played in tournaments. And Street Fighter 4 sort of brought it back and kind of brought it home. And even though, for me, it's nowhere near as good a game as Street Fighter 3, it's a much, much better commercial product. It just captured people's imaginations again and brought the fighting genre came screaming back after a kind of lean, 10, maybe not quite 10 years, but several years of being in the doldrums, and that was gigantic for them. And again, gave them this platform to continue on from and make absolute bank off of. Yeah,
showed again how important art style is, because that was like, what if 2D fighter but 3D elements? What if it was 3D but 2D? But what about if it was art at the same time? Because it just had this artistic flourish to it as well. And it was, even I played that. And I'm not very good at fighting games. But I was just like, you played it and it was just like, wow, this is, it looks special.
It does. They totally, you're completely right. They brought the fun back. They brought the kind of spectacle and, you can come in at any level and play, and that whole ink system and the cell shaded look, it was such a attractive thing for people. And absolutely brilliant. Such a great game. And I think it also, they cleverly started slowing down the Street Fighter output a bit at that point, which was
because at that point, even though it was titled Street Fighter 4, it was Street Fighter 625.
Exactly. Oh, massive.
Alpha 72.
Yeah. The market saturation was taking the piss. Well, I mean, I talked about, not being many Capcom games on the Dreamcast, although I had one that I've not mentioned, which was Power Stone, which is absolutely superb. Yes. But, they had, one of the games was Capcom versus SNK, and you had Capcom versus SNK, Marvel superheroes, X-Men versus Street Fighter, X-Men Children of the Atom. You just had billions of them, and they needed to quieten it down. And
were they the original crossovers, would you say? Like, that popularised crossovers?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the only other thing that you could say was King of Fighters, which was like, I think the first one of those was about 1994.
But that was more politics that caused all that, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than a conscious decision to go, hey, this would be cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a bunch of it wasn't a collaboration either. That was a bunch of their fighters, SNK's fighting characters from different fighting games, all
they
in
just needed
one.
a way to boost their rosters, weren't it?
Yeah, and the Marvel collaborations came around because they got Capcom to do X-Men: Children of the Atom, and then they were like,
why not?
Yeah, well, yeah, and then they were like, hang on, you've done a really cracking job here. Let's mix it up a bit. So yeah, but
and then it's all gone full circle anyway, because like you get Terry Bogard in Street Fighter. What are we on now? 6.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's all gone full circle. I'm half expecting the next one to be Street Fighter X King of the Fighters at some point.
Yeah, well, that's it. They kind of fluidly move between each other's genre IPs now, which is really good. I really like it. But yeah, I mean, for Capcom, things started to be a bit quieter in 2010s. You got some really good things coming out. You had, the minute I say this, you'll get overexcited, so I'll leave it to the end. But PN03, which I played recently, and Okami. Beautiful Joe, which I name dropped earlier on.
What a game.
But yeah, they won again in the kind of Ace Attorney mould of, hang on, is this a Capcom game? Was Ghost Trick, which, yes. I know you were a huge fan of that one and all.
Yeah, recently, I think I've been playing a version of that on Steam recently. And it's, really good. Really, really good.
Exactly. And so even though it was comparatively fallow around this time, they came storming back in 2017 with Resident Evil 7, because 5 and 6 had done, not great numbers. But then Resident Evil 7 was another one of those, hang on, we've not just caught the zeitgeist, but we've gone ahead of the zeitgeist, They absolutely just went, okay. There's the last few years, there's been the whole sort of torture porn aesthetic of like Saw and what's called Hostel and all of those kind of games, and Grindhouse had that big flash, and around the time of Kill Bill, and they're like, right, yeah, we're going to use the last sort of 15 years of horror films and we're going to reinvent Resident Evil in that mold. And it was all Chainsaw Massacre, and
demo was that was perfection for a demo.
Yeah.
People will always around that era talk about PT. And because I think that kind of cultural zeitgeist and what happened after that is infamous. But I think that demo for Resident Evil 7, I was out of Resident Evil. 5 and 6, I enjoyed 5, it was an action title. 6 was god-awful, and it had the weird blowjob giraffe logo thing as well. But then 7 came out and it pulled me back in. It changed it in all the right ways and brought back pure horror. And it's still, I prefer the demo to the full game. And that is not saying the full game's bad in any way, shape or form. It's just that, 45-minute demo? It was just encapsulated perfection. Like, they could have released that. God, that was Resident Evil. This was this standalone horror game. I would have gone, brilliant, all in, well done, great game of the year.
It was amazing. It was one of the best demos of all time, without a doubt. Yeah, absolutely superb. And I started playing it in VR, and I just noped out of there just so quickly. That was way too much.
I have tried Resident Evil 7 in VR, and I'll say I'm not scared. Like, I don't like, because I've spoken about my things with horror before, but even I was playing that going, I don't like this. I don't like it. It's too real. Yeah. Just you can see this creepy house and like everything's above you, and you're like all the trees are around you. Go, this just doesn't feel right. I'll play this in 2D.
Oh no, I hear you. Yeah, it's just absolutely so beautifully done. You just can't. Yeah, you just can't really underestimate how. I mean, that game was gigantic, and 8 wasn't as big, but like the remakes of 2 and 3, they were really huge as well. Yeah. And it kickstarted that, and Monster Hunter around that same time.
Yep.
Like Monster Hunter's been going for a long time, but it
was very niche. Monster Hunter.
Yeah, it was really niche. Yeah, except when I can't remember which one it was, but in 2018 they released one of the Monster Hunters that became the giant that it is today, and that was just a year after Resident Evil 7. That was really it, kicking Capcom back into...
Monster Hunter Rise, you're thinking of.
Rise, that's it, yeah.
Worlds had started to grow in popularity because that had quite a few add-ons and it was doing good numbers, but Rise is the one that everyone kind of stood up and took notice of, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And since then, they've just been back in the ascendancy completely, and Monster Hunter's an absolute behemoth, and you got Resi 9 next year, and they're back at the top of their game.
Still not played 8 yet. I've got to finish 7, play 8, and then get ready for 9.
I thought 8 was okay. I didn't think it was brilliant, but it was all right. I would say if you've not played it, then play Resident Evil 2 Remake. That's really, really good.
That's still on my back catalogue.
Yeah, and you can probably get that for buttons these days.
Yeah, I've got it. No, I'm not stupid, Stu. I haven't sort of of course I've bought it and just gone, I'll park that, because that's what you do these days.
Well,
just in case it gets delisted.
Well, exactly. And it only came out about 6 years ago, it's still a fairly fresh game. So
if we're getting to the point where games like that are going to be considered retro soon, what's going on?
Oh, that's just bananas. But yeah,
the thing is, you mentioned the mid-2010s, and I think that's when Capcom forgot who Capcom were, because they had a franchise that I think should have been their next big franchise in Dead Rising. They dropped the ball with that big time. Dead Rising 1 was amazing. It'd never been seen before. The amount of enemies on screen and this, all the different things. If you saw something, you could interact with it. You could use it. So you'd see a shelf full of sporting equipment, and you could pick up each individual hockey stick or sort of trainer and stuff like that. And that was just so mind blowing. And then you had the crafting systems, everything that went into it, and it was just oh my god, this is amazing. And you could I've seen speed runs of that game that were amazing. Dead Rising 2, they built on that really well. And Dead Rising 3, I think it lost a bit because it went outside. It didn't need to go out, but I get why they did it. But it still had that element of if you saw something, you could use it. And then for whatever reason, Dead Rising 4, which was their big comeback, things were textures rather than usable items. And the claim was it was too much processing power to be able to do this. And it was just use, and this is an argument I'm going to have over a lot of games these days, use that 360 engine and just iterate on it, where you could use all this stuff. They don't look bad, these games.
Yeah.
A little bit of polish, yeah, great. That's what Dead Rising is. You can kill everything and you can use everything. That's Dead Rising. That's the selling point. Otherwise, you just become this generic 3D action type game. And it's Capcom went down this route of trying to fit in with everyone else rather than be what Capcom are, which are unique, interesting games. And just completely dropped the ball around that era for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think they it's good that they tried so many different things, because you start looking around that era and like you say, they push out in so many different directions. Dead Rising definitely being one of the main ones, and that had such a surprise amount of success that you would think that they could only get better and iterating on that like they did with Resident Evil. But in that era, for every franchise that they tried to create, for every one that they iterated on and it was good, they had one they tried to create that kind of didn't work. Like Lost Planet, which I really liked, but then they did a Dead Rising with that and made a mistake with all the sequels. And it's kind of they buggered that up. And it's from a good place. They did it because that's what they did back in 2001 with Resident Evil 4. That was just an absolute turnaround, and it was a massive success, but it was nothing really like the original tank control games. And so, it's nice that they were innovating, but some steps, and I think it's just like showing how the maturity of the video game industry over that period of time. People thought, okay, I've done something really good and innovative, I've got to do that for the sequel, rather than going, we'll keep that in that vein and we'll make a new IP that takes things in a different direction.
And I think with Capcom as well, again, rather than being Capcom, they tried to chase what everyone else was doing, which is, can we make all the money in the world? So all of a sudden you had tons of like microtransactions. Like, I know Street Fighter's always had extra characters and stuff like that you can get on the mod system, but then like the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and stuff like that, I looked at it just when I don't even know where to start with this. The amount of extras there are to buy, and then Street Fighter 5, the amount of extras you released, they released at that time a game that worked but had missing all the content, which you then had to buy. Street Fighter 6, even tons and tons of cosmetic add-ons and stuff. And I think they've tried to chase that whole thing that everyone else is doing, because obviously the corporate bigwigs at the top wanted that, rather than going, what made Capcom special was they made games that you wanted to play. And rather than instead of panicking when one doesn't work, like Dead Rising 3 undersold, don't get me wrong, but instead of going, right, that game undersold, so it's just maybe that's the end of that series, or maybe we, what can we do to do this? They just went, well, next game comes out, it's got to make all the money, so we've got to make sure people buy as much as they can. And it's just like, that's not what Capcom or Capcom games for me are. Capcom games are games that I pick up, have the most wonderful time with, and will revisit one day down the line, because they stay with you. Whereas that era, I'm looking at it now, and I'm going, none of those am I looking at again. I'm definitely going to go back and play those over and over and over, because it's just not that, like, I think 2015 to 2019 era is just not great for them.
Yeah, it was a very funny time for them. Yeah, it absolutely was. But yeah, thankfully they have come way back, and they're in a superb position now. And I think everyone's looking forward to Resi 9, and I'm personally really excited about Pragmata coming out next year.
Which one's that? I've heard this one, but I can't remember what that one is.
Well, that's the one when you're the one in an astronaut who finds that android that looks like a young girl, and you've got to cooperate together.
Like a modern eco.
Yeah, similar. But yeah, so you've got those coming up. Absolutely brilliant. But you can't underestimate how much they're the best arcade game maker that has transitioned into the modern world. And there was always that competition in the past from like Namco or Taito or Konami, but they've just outlasted them in terms of quality for various reasons, and I'm just really pleased they're going today. So if you could think of like one absolute favourite Capcom game, I know it's almost impossible, but go on then, what's your absolute favourite?
It's got dinosaurs in it.
Hey, excellent.
That's for sure. Dino Crisis 3.
Nice one.
The original Dino Crisis, just for me, that's it. It's the best series for me, Ace Attorney, but best absolute, you give me that game, I will play it, Dino Crisis.
Yeah. Oh, it's an absolute corker. It's really hard for me to choose one. It's probably between, obviously, Alien vs Predator, or Resident Evil Remake, or Resident Evil 4. So only three. But I think if I was stranded on a desert island, it would be Aliens vs Predator. If it was, which is both the best game and the highest quality, and I enjoy the most, then it's probably Resident Evil Remake. So basically the original Resident Evil. Absolutely brilliant. So it's really weird actually. You talk about sort of like Resident Evil Remake. I know we've just done best, but I sort of, like,
I know they give the full remake treatment to sort of like 2, 3, and 4, which is really interesting. They've still not really touched 1, and I think that's really clever on their part, because I don't think that original Resident Evil works in the RE engine that they use for 2, 3, and 4 remakes.
Yeah.
I don't think that original game works in that engine. It needs to be what it is, which is slightly rougher looking, pre-rendered backgrounds and tank controls, because all of that added to, that tension and everything. So I think they still know what they're doing, because yes, you can look at it obviously and go, that needs a remake, but it doesn't. That's one game that doesn't. I don't think you need to touch it. Just make sure it works with modern controllers on modern systems. That's all it needs. And I think they've done that with Remake, or whatever they called the remade version a few years back.
Yeah. I think, playing Tormented Souls 2 the other week, I was so impressed with how you can get that look of the Resident Evil remake, but in full 3D. I was really amazed, and I agree with you. I don't think the Resident Evil, the RE engine can do that. They would need a brand new one to make it look that way. I think it kind of leads the way of how they should go if they ever decide to. But I would much rather see some quality of life improvements made to, like, Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0. I'd rather see remakes of those first, because you can't improve on Resident Evil original, and you can't improve on Resident Evil 4, even though they tried. But
what about that light gun game?
Oh yeah, I like those games. Yeah, I do.
It was shit.
What, the Wii ones?
So bad. No, the old one.
Oh yeah. Oh god, Survivor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah, that was awful. I played it.
But still, if they ever do like full collections, it's got to be included, because I think sometimes the really crap games are what enhance the other games. And don't get me wrong, I've played the emulated version of Survivor a few years back, and it's like, it's bad, but you play it because it's bad.
Yeah. Oh, it's bananas. You're like, who thought this was a good idea? This is terrible. But yeah. But yeah, no, they really will. I'm sure they'll come round to remaking Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0 at some point, which is...
Yes, but they could get in the queue behind Dino Crisis.
Well, precisely.
They keep teasing it. That's the worst thing. They keep re-registering the trademark and then bringing out clothes and stuff, or mobile something come up, and it's just like, do it. You've got the engine.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on in their heads. You never know.
I don't think Steven Spielberg holds the trademark over Velociraptors.
No, he probably tried to get it.
Just need to get a 6'9" Michael Crichton in place and everything, 6'9" Michael Crichton, that's ridiculous.
Was that how tall he was?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
I know.
Why wasn't he a basketball player?
I don't know, because maybe he was a real-life Diplodocus.
Could have been.
Or Bronchiosaurus.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. He's a ridiculously tall guy. I've been watching a lot of retrospectives, so I found out his height recently.
That is insane. Well, there you go. So, absolutely superb, continuing to be superb, and just wanted to celebrate one of my favourite, if not my favourite, developers of all time on our special 300th birthday.
300th birthday with vampires.
Yeah.
Next week, the secret to eternal life.
Anniversary would have been the better word, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. 300 episodes. That's just over 6 years.
Something like that, isn't it? Yeah. Crazy.
Started October 2019.
Bloody hell.
I started MHG just to stop me killing myself. Amazing.
I know, and unfortunately it worked, and you're still with us.
So thank you, Capcom.
Indeed.
And the likes, because if it wasn't for video games giving us these options, these escapes, then who knows? So yeah, video games. I'd just like to get a little. Video games can be so much more than what people think they are. You'll always hear the negatives, but the likes of Capcom producing art, which is essentially what video games are an art form in some fashion, and that debate's just stupid these days. They're just as important as books and music and TV and film and everything. Just amazing stuff that just means the world to so many people.
It really does, and it gets you through hard times, and like anything that encourages, play and interaction like that has got to be a good thing, and it's certainly borne out in our lives, I reckon.
Yeah, no, totally. So with that, before I go too well soppy, I'll let you do your bits, Stu.
Yeah, you can't beat a bit of soppy every now and again. But I hope everyone enjoyed looking back on a selection of Capcom's greatest. There's so many that are good that we didn't even mention. They're absolutely brilliant.
I'm not even going to suggest, otherwise we'll be here for another half hour.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll leave it there. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for following us for all this time, or even if you're new, hopefully this has enticed you to come back and listen to us again. So until next time, make sure you're following us on all the socials. Check out our content on the website. Listen to us on Discord and join in the chat if you fancy it. And apart from that, until next week, stay safe and stay sane.
And be careful with dinosaurs.
Absolutely.